The Spectacular Spider-Man, an animated series that breathes new life into the beloved Marvel superhero. This dynamic show follows the adventures of Peter Parker, a high school student juggling the challenges of teenage life with his secret identity as Spider-Man. With a perfect blend of action, humor, and heartfelt storytelling, the series captures the essence of Spider-Man's journey as he battles iconic villains, navigates personal struggles, and learns what it truly means to be a hero. Whether you're a longtime fan or new to the Spider-Man universe, The Spectacular Spider-Man promises a thrilling and emotionally resonant experience that honors the legacy of the friendly neighborhood web-slinger. This series consists of 2 seasons, and in this video, I will be talking about Season 1 from start to finish in detail. The series begins with Spider-Man swinging through the city. He finds himself stopping a robbery by catching professional thieves Alex and his partner in crime Marco. Unbeknownst to Spidey, he's being watched by Marco and Alex's superior, Hammerhead, and his boss, the Big Man. Now that the existence of Spider-Man has been proven to this criminal kingpin, he orders Hammerhead to dispatch the enforcers. Before going to school the next day, Peter Parker overhears his Aunt May voicing her concerns about money to her neighbor and friend Anna Watson, and that she doesn't want Peter to worry. Meanwhile, at Oscorp Industries, an elderly inventor Adrian Toomes berates Oscorp scientist Dr. Otto Octavius, blaming him for stealing his personal flyer designs. The discussion is quelled by Norman Osborn, who claims that he and his company has done nothing wrong by taking his idea, and that nobody would believe that Toomes, an unsuccessful inventor, had invented something as amazing as tech flight and is kicked out the lab. Back at school, Peter meets Harry Osborn, his best friend, and Gwen Stacy, but he finds himself becoming the punching bag of Flash Thompson and his friend Kenny as they rough him up and steal his lunch. However, it's not all bad as Peter and Gwen get selected by their teacher to take part in an internship with Dr. Connors, in the very lab where Peter gained his spider powers. After school, Peter goes to Harry's place and speaks to Norman Osborn. Suddenly, Toomes swoops in like a vulture and grabs Norman, demanding him to tell the truth and apologize, but Norman refuses. Harry goes to call the cops, while Peter removes his shoes and jumps off the building. Just as the Vulture is about to finish Norman, Spider-Man intervenes and rescues him, causing the Vulture to flee. Peter and Gwen go to the lab and meet their old friend Eddie Brock, who works as a lab assistant with the Connors. They meet Dr. Kurt Connors and his wife Martha Connors, but Peter learns that they won't be getting paid. That night, Peter is searching around the Osborn penthouse for his shoes as Osborn is attacked once more by the Vulture. Osborn flees in his limo, followed by the Vulture and Spider-Man. When Spider-Man tries to capture Vulture, he is fired on by the big man's enforcers. Fortunately for Osborn, he manages to stay safe while the enforcers distract Spider-Man. He manages to fight off all of them and incapacitates a few of the enforcers. Spider-Man turns his attention to Vulture, while one enforcer continues to chase in his helicopter. He manages to trick Vulture into destroying one of his wings in the helicopter's rear rotor, taking both the enforcer and Vulture out. He captures the Vulture, but the enforcer escapes. On a rainy night, an electrician Max Dillon is upgrading Dr. Connors' new source of clean energy. Max tries to reach for his drill and gets electrocuted and crashes into the tank, covering him in the fluid. At the hospital, Max is found to be emitting strong electrical fields and is placed in quarantine. His body is generating a constant stream of bioelectricity, requiring him to wear an insulated suit to protect himself and others. He becomes restless and agitated with his situation and flees the hospital. Max enters and accidentally short-circuits the power of everything using electricity around him after he loses his temper again about not being able to even drink a cup of coffee. Embarrassed, Max flees and Peter, believing him to be dangerous, pursues him as Spider-Man. Peter manages to stop Max and remove his mask. Max, enraged, attacks while demanding to know why Spider-Man attacked him in the first place, but flees while Peter is distracted by a phone call from Aunt May. The following day, Gwen informs him of the accident at the lab, and Peter realizes he probably made things worse for Max. Max arrives at the lab, demanding Connors to cure him. Eddie distracts him while Peter leads Gwen and Liz, his classmate, to safety. Spider-Man attempts to apologize for acting recklessly the previous night, but Max declares himself Electro and unleashes a huge surge, unknowingly electrifying a vial of Kurt's lizard serum that has been knocked to the floor. Electro and Spider-Man begin to fight. Electro becomes furious when he notices the Connors and Eddie escaping and blasts Spider-Man outside. Spidey dons a pair of rubber gloves from the lab and slams Electro into a wall. Electro retaliates by zapping Spider-Man into a radio tower and launches himself after the webhead, running a current through the entire tower. Spider-Man sees a piece of debris crash through a glass roof, under which is a swimming pool. Getting an idea, Spider-Man swings around the tower and kicks Electro off and into the pool, where he short-circuits and passes out. At night, Dr. Kurt injects himself with the electrified lizard serum. He awakes in pain, and his arm surprisingly regrows, but knowing that he experimented on himself, Martha is furious that Kurt used an untested formula on himself. The next day, Gwen and Peter go to the Connors lab, and Kurt reveals his regrown arm. They all celebrate, but they realize that scales are growing on his arm and back, meaning that the reptilian half of his brain is taking over, and Kurt is slowly regressing. They decide to make a gene cleanser, which would block the non-human DNA and help Kurt regain himself. Kurt realizes his mistake, but he transforms into a lizard and tranches the whole lab and flees. Eddie follows the lizard, while Peter makes an excuse and goes after them. Spider-Man tracks him to the Grand Central Station and tries to communicate with him, but it goes in vain as they tackle each other into a subway tunnel where the lizard uses his powerful tail to bust up Spider-Man's hand. They both get into a fight, and the lizard overpowers Spider-Man in all aspects and eventually throws him off the train. As Spider-Man tumbles to the tunnel floor, the lizard escapes. Martha and Gwen finish making the gene cleanser, and Spider-Man returns to the lab and takes it. Meanwhile, Eddie informs them all that the lizard is at the zoo. Spider-Man arrives at the zoo and manages to locate the lizard. He mistakenly wrestles an alligator, then gets attacked by the lizard. Eddie uses himself as bait to lure him to the polar bear pond. The lizard and Spider-Man fight some more, and then Billy shows up and tries to talk some sense into his father. The lizard is about to snap Billy up, but Spider-Man leaps in to get the lizard into the pond. Spider-Man uses Billy's skateboard to open his mouth wide and pours the cleanser into the lizard's mouth. Thankfully, the cleanser is a success, and Kurt returns to normal, his arm lost once more. And off in the distance, a webbed-up camera flashes. The next day, Peter gets the lizard photos published in the Bugle to get the money he needs. However, when Gwen, Eddie, and the Connors find out, they are outraged that he ran off simply to take pictures. Martha tells Peter that he has lost her trust and fires him from the internship. As Peter leaves, he grabs one gene cleanser as he thinks about getting rid of his powers, but in the end decides to just hide it. Elsewhere, Hammerhead talks to one of the enforcers named Montana and gives him a suit, which can help him take out Spider-Man. Peter, on the other hand, goes to the Bugle to meet Jonah Jameson, who wants more photos of Spider-Man in action. Spider-Man sees Marco and Alex, so he decides to go after them and takes care of them as usual, but gets hit by a sonic blast. He realizes that he cannot land an attack, nor can he grab the shocker. The shocker manages to blast Spider-Man into a trash compactor and activates it. After they leave, Spider-Man breaks out of the cube of garbage, which happens to be a refrigerator. He tracks Shocker to a condemned theater and learns about how there is a bigger person behind some of these attacks on him. Using some deadly dodging, Spider-Man tricks Shocker into bringing down the house, ending the fight. Meanwhile, Norman is having a meeting with Hammerhead, who proposes Oscorp to manufacture supervillains to distract Spider-Man from the big man's operations. Marco and Alex get bailed out by Hammerhead, who tells them that they will be joining the big leagues now. They go to an underground lab, where Hammerhead takes Marco to Dr. Otto Octavius. They plan to create a subdermal armor onto his body that cannot be penetrated by anyone, even Spider-Man. Octavius voices his worries about the safety of the procedure until silenced by Norman Osborn. The experiment goes out of control, turning Marco into a pile of sand. However, the sand reshapes itself into Marco as he becomes Sandman. He decides to dismiss the idea of revenge against Spider-Man and goes to steal. Spider-Man finds him, but gets surprised when Marco reveals his sand powers. They both start fighting each other, but Spider-Man is unable to harm Marco. Sandman accidentally drops the name Big Man, prompting Spider-Man's curiosity. Sandman escapes, but forgets to take the stolen goods. The next day, Peter starts following a car and gets attacked by sandy spikes. Spider-Man and Sandman gets into a tussle and the car crashes. Sandman ambushes him, but Spider-Man still cannot land a proper attack on him. He spots a concrete machine and lures Sandman underneath it and yanks it open, coating Sandman with fast-drying cement. In the underground lab, Otto Octavius explains the details to Alex, that he will be bonded with thick titanium armor that will be non-removable. The experiment is successful as Alex becomes the Rhino, a force that cannot be stopped. At the Bugle, Aunt May goes to meet Peter's co-workers. Betty, the receptionist, texts Peter informing him that she and Aunt May are getting coffee. Rhino rams into the office, demanding to know Peter Parker's whereabouts. Rhino believes that since Peter takes Spider-Man's pictures, he knows how to find him. Peter swings to the Bugle and finds the Rhino interrogating Jameson, who sees Peter but tells him to hide. Peter changes into Spider-Man and swings in, swapping Jameson from Rhino. He realizes that it's actually Alex and starts wondering if it's the big man again who powered up Alex. He leads him through the wall, and Rhino falls off the building, but nothing happens to him. The police show up, but he starts destroying them easily, so Spider-Man draws him away from the police in public. He lures him into a service tunnel, and as Rhino starts to sweat, he pops open the pipes, steaming the entire manhole. The heat is too much for Rhino. He mentions Mr. L as the big man and collapses. At the Bugle, Foswell, a senior editor, tells Peter that Mr. L can be Lincoln. Peter decides to investigate. He takes care of the guards and reaches Lincoln, who also goes by Tombstone. Tombstone offers Spider-Man a way out. He gets paid handsomely to do what he already does, but whenever Tombstone says, Spider-Man looks the other way and ignores a particular crime. Spider-Man refuses, so Tombstone calls the cops, saying he attacked his men and is threatening him. A frustrated Spider-Man runs away. Coming up next, we will see Spider-Man battling against new enemies like the Green Goblin and Otto Octavius, aka Dr. Octopus, and some make a comeback from prison who give our hero a hard time.
If you like this recap, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Marvel Tunes, as there's more to come your way.